Princess Leora sat alone in the tallest tower of the Nalari Palace. She watched the silver city below, its lights shimmering like distant stars. The palace was quiet, but her heart felt heavy. She had grown up surrounded by nobles, guards, and tutors, yet she had no true friends. All the alien suitors avoided her. They whispered about her strange energy, a glow that sometimes flickered from her skin when she was upset or frightened. Some said it was dangerous, others said it was unpredictable. Whatever the reason, no alien suitor wanted to be near her. Leora had tried to be friendly, to smile, to show that she was kind, but no matter what she did, they turned away. She remembered her 12th birthday when the council had invited nobles from distant worlds to meet her. She had worn a gown of soft blue silk, her hair braided neatly, and a hopeful smile on her face. The suitors had walked past her, barely glancing, some even laughing quietly at each other. She had cried that night, hiding behind the curtains of her room. From that day, she learned to hide her feelings, to speak only when necessary, and to smile politely while feeling empty inside. Her only comfort was the palace gardens. They were vast and full of colors she loved. Flowers of every hue grew there, and rare plants from distant planets lined the crystal pathways. She liked to walk there when the sun touched the towers, when the air smelled of blooming petals and warm stone. The gardens were her secret world, a place where she could feel calm even when the rest of the palace ignored her. One morning, Leora was in the garden, walking slowly along a path lined with golden ferns. The sky was soft pink with early sunlight, and birds with silver feathers sang in the branches above. She felt the familiar flicker of her energy, not dangerous this time, just restless. She had been thinking about the endless meetings, the lessons on politics, and the endless reminders that she was alone. It all felt heavy. She wanted to escape, even for a few minutes, from the whispers, the cold stares, and the fear that everyone had of her. Far away from the palace, on a small human colony station near the edge of the galaxy, a young technician named Evan Brooks worked in the engine rooms. He had dark brown hair, a straight nose, and eyes that seemed to notice small details no one else saw. He was not a hero or a noble. He was just a simple man who fixed machines, repaired circuits, and followed instructions. Evan liked his life. It was ordinary, and he liked ordinary. He liked that he could work with his hands and see results immediately, unlike the nobles and their endless politics. One morning, Evan's team received an order to travel to the Nalari Royal Fleet. It was a high-ranking mission, rare for humans, but not dangerous. The Nalari ships were huge, elegant, and powered by energy crystals that pulsed like living hearts. Evan had never seen anything so beautiful. He walked along the corridors of the flagship, feeling small but excited. He carried a toolbox and a notebook, ready for anything. As Evan worked, he noticed the security protocols were strict. No one wandered freely. Only nobles, trusted aides, or engineers on assigned duty could access certain areas. But as he repaired a broken energy conduit near the observation deck, he saw a small door slightly open. Curiosity stirred in him. He pushed it gently and found himself in a secret garden on the ship. It was smaller than the palace garden, but still full of color. Strange plants glowed softly, and water flowed in a small crystal stream. The place felt alive. He did not notice at first that he was not alone. Princess Leora was there, crouched by a pond, her hands touching the water. She looked up as he stepped closer. Their eyes met. For a moment she froze. Usually anyone entering her garden would step back in fear or hurry to leave. Most aliens could feel her energy and felt it as danger. They would run or bow nervously, trying not to breathe too loudly. But Evan did not step back. He simply looked at her with quiet curiosity. "Hello," he said softly. His voice was calm, not loud, not commanding. It carried no fear. Leora blinked. She expected anger, fear, or hesitation, None came. She tilted her head slightly. "Hello?" she replied, her voice a whisper at first. She was cautious. She had been alone for so long, she did not know how to talk to someone who was not afraid of her. Evan smiled lightly. "I did not mean to intrude. I just saw the door open. I did not know anyone would be here." Leora studied him. His words were simple but honest. He did not bow. He did not speak fancy titles. He did not ask her to prove anything. He spoke as if she was a normal person, not a dangerous princess. She felt something strange. A small warmth that had nothing to do with her energy. For the first time in years, she felt seen. "It is all right," she said. She moved slightly to make room on a stone bench near the stream. "This place is not often visited. Very few come here." Evan nodded and set his toolbox down quietly. He looked at the plants, at the water, and then back at her. "It is beautiful," he said. "I like it here." Leora smiled faintly. She did not know why, but she wanted to tell him more. "These are rare plants," she said. "Some come from planets far away. They are hard to grow, but they survive here. Like me, I suppose." She looked down at her hands, hiding a small flicker of her glowing energy. She hated that it sometimes betrayed her feelings. Evan followed her gaze. He did not flinch. He did not step back. He simply said, "I do not think that makes you weak. It makes you alive. It makes you real." Leora blinked. She had never heard anyone speak like that. Most aliens only saw her as a problem, a risk, or a prize. Evan saw her as a person. She felt something she had not felt for a long time: hope. They spent the next hour in quiet conversation. She told him about the garden, the plants, the quiet moments she cherished. He told her about his work on human stations, the simple life he lived, and the small things that made him happy. They laughed quietly when a bird landed near them and dipped into the water. Leora's energy flickered gently, but Evan did not notice it as danger. He only smiled, as if the light was part of the beauty. When it was time for him to leave, Leora felt a strange reluctance. She had been alone for so long, she had expected that loneliness would never change. But now, she felt that perhaps it could. "Will you come back?" she asked softly. Evan hesitated. He wanted to promise, but he did not want to lie. He simply said, "I will try." It was enough. Leora nodded, a small smile touching her lips. She watched him leave the garden and close the door quietly behind him. For the first time, she felt that maybe someone cared about her for who she truly was, not for her title, her energy, or her power. The next days were different. Leora moved through the palace with a lighter step. She watched the other nobles who still avoided her and felt no bitterness. She had seen someone who was not afraid. She had seen someone who treated her as a person, and that was a feeling stronger than fear, gossip, or even her own power. Evan, meanwhile, could not stop thinking about the princess. He did not think of her as royalty, only as a young girl who had been left alone by everyone who should have cared. He remembered her quiet smile, the way her eyes softened when she spoke about her garden, and the warmth he felt simply sitting beside her. He knew he would return, not for glory, not for power, but because he wanted her to know she was not alone. Soon, small rumors began to spread among the palace staff. A human had been seen speaking to the princess. Some laughed, some whispered warnings. The alien suitors rolled their eyes and said nothing. But Leora did not care. She had found something far more valuable than approval. She had found someone who could see her, and that was enough to make her heart lighter. As evening fell over the silver towers, Leora returned to her tower room. She looked out over the city, her thoughts on the human who had entered her garden. She did not know what would happen next, or if he would return. She only knew that for the first time. She felt a spark of hope, a feeling she had almost forgotten. And for a lonely princess who had been shunned by all alien suitors, even a small spark could feel like the beginning of a new world. Evan returned to the Nalari royal fleet 2 days later. He told himself he was only there for repairs and maintenance, but his mind kept drifting to the garden and the princess he had met. He had thought about her constantly, about the soft glow in her eyes and the quiet way she spoke about the plants. Most humans would never get close to royalty, and most aliens avoided her for fear of her energy. But Evan had seen her as someone real, someone ordinary in her own way, and he could not forget that feeling. Leora, meanwhile, moved through her days with a strange mixture of excitement and anxiety. She knew that the human had returned, that he worked among the engineers on the fleet. She wondered if he would find her garden again, if he would speak to her as if she were not a princess, but just a person. She worried that if others found out they were speaking, there would be trouble. The nobles were still cold, the council still wary, and the alien suitors still whispered behind her back. But despite everything, her hope had grown. One afternoon, Evan was sent to inspect a communication array on the edge of the flagship. The corridor was long and quiet, and he carried his tools carefully. As he turned a corner, he saw a familiar figure walking toward him. It was Leora. She had chosen to leave the palace gardens and come to the work area. Her hair was braided simply, and she wore a soft green tunic that shimmered slightly in the light. She seemed less tense than he remembered, but her eyes still held a mixture of caution and curiosity. "Hello?" she said softly. "Hello?" Evan replied, smiling. He set down his tools and bowed slightly, though not formally. It was a gesture of respect, not fear. Leora nodded, and for a moment they simply stood there, looking at each other. "How is your work?" she asked. She had seen some of the human engineers at the fleet before, but she had not spoken to them. "It is fine," Evan said. "The arrays are old, but they work. I just need to check some connections." He glanced at her. "Do you want to come with me? It is not dangerous." Leora hesitated. She was not used to walking with anyone outside the palace gardens, but something about the human made her feel safe. She nodded. "Okay," she said. They walked together through the corridors. The walls were smooth and silver, glowing faintly with energy running through them. Evan explained how the arrays worked in simple words. Leora listened carefully, asking questions that showed her intelligence and curiosity. She had grown up learning politics and court matters, but she had never learned about technology or machinery. She found his explanations fascinating, and she liked the way he spoke without pretending to be more important than her. As they worked, they reached the edge of the ship where a large viewing window looked out into space. Stars stretched endlessly, and distant planets glimmered like jewels. Leora paused, resting her hands on the edge of the window. "It is beautiful," she said quietly. She had seen space many times from the palace towers and the fleet decks, but somehow this view felt different, more personal. Evan looked at the stars, and then at her. "It is," he said. "But sometimes it is even more beautiful when someone is here to see it with you." Leora felt a warmth in her chest. She had been alone for so long that she almost forgot that companionship could feel this way. She looked at him and smiled, a small, genuine smile that reached her eyes. "Thank you for coming," she said softly. They continued their work, checking arrays and circuits. When a small surge of energy caused one of the panels to spark, Evan quickly fixed it, shielding Leora from the danger without a thought. She realized how calm he remained, how steady his hands were, and how he did not seem afraid of her energy at all. Most aliens would have recoiled, even fled. Evan stayed. He cared more about her safety than anything else. After the repairs, they walked back through the corridors. The hum of the ship was steady, and the soft lights guided their steps. They spoke quietly about their lives. Leora told him about her childhood, how she had tried to make friends but had been rejected. She spoke about the alien suitors who came and went, each one leaving disappointment behind. Evan listened, never interrupting, never judging. He only nodded and asked gentle questions that made her feel heard. "Why did you come back?" she asked finally. Her voice was almost a whisper. Evan looked at her, his eyes serious. "Because I wanted to see you again," he said. "Because you are not like the others. You are real, and you deserve someone who sees you that way." Leora's heart beat faster. She had never heard words like that spoken to her. Most people, most aliens, only saw her power, her title, or her danger. But Evan saw her. He saw her as a person who deserved care, not fear. Their quiet moment was interrupted by a sudden alarm. Red lights flashed along the corridors, and a loud voice echoed through the ship. "Intruder alert! Security breach detected in the observation deck." Leora froze. She had been trained for emergencies, but she had never faced one like this in person. Evan grabbed her hand gently. "Stay close to me," he said calmly. "We will be safe." They ran together through the corridors. Leora felt her energy flicker, sensing the danger ahead. She expected the intruder to sense her power and attack, but when they reached the observation deck, they saw a group of alien mercenaries trying to access the ship's control systems. They were armed, and their eyes glinted with intent to steal or destroy. Without thinking, Evan stepped forward. He had no weapons, only tools, but his mind was quick. He grabbed a small energy rod from the wall and activated it. The rod emitted a bright light that caused the mercenaries to pause. Leora felt her power surge, her energy responding to the danger. But she did not lose control because Evan stayed beside her. His calm presence anchored her. Together, they worked. Evan blocked the intruders, using the energy rod and his quick thinking, while Leora focused her power, creating barriers and flashes of light that pushed the mercenaries back. She realized how strong she was, how dangerous, but also how much she could control when she had someone she trusted. After a tense few minutes, the intruders retreated, realizing they could not overcome the combined efforts of the princess and the human. The alarm faded and the red lights returned to normal. Leora's energy calmed, leaving her glowing faintly but peacefully. She looked at Evan, her heart filled with gratitude and awe. "You saved me," she said softly. "No," Evan replied gently. "We saved each other." For the first time, Leora felt a deep connection, a bond that went beyond words. She realized that being alone had never been about her title or her power. It had been about fear. And now, with Evan by her side, that fear was gone. In the following days, their friendship grew. Evan found small ways to visit her garden, to share simple meals, and to talk quietly. He did not seek glory or recognition. He only wanted her to know that she was not alone. Leora, in turn, felt her confidence grow. She no longer feared her energy, her solitude, or the judgment of others. She had someone who accepted her completely. Rumors began to spread through the palace and the fleet. A human had been seen speaking to the princess, walking with her, and even helping in emergencies. Some nobles whispered warnings, others laughed, and some simply watched with curiosity. But Leora did not care. She had found someone who valued her as a person, and that mattered more than anything else in the galaxy. One evening, as the twin moons of the Nalari system rose over the fleet, Leora and Evan stood together in her garden. The plants glowed softly under the moonlight, and the air smelled of flowers and water. She looked at him and smiled. "I am glad you came," she said. "I am glad I came too," Evan replied. "I am glad I met you." They stood together in silence, watching the moons rise. For the first time in her life, Leora felt a sense of peace. She knew the future would be difficult. The council, the nobles, and the alien suitors would continue to judge her. Threats might come from other empires. But for now, she was not alone. And sometimes, that was enough to change everything. And so, the lonely princess who had been shunned by all alien suitors began to find hope. The human who stepped forward had shown her a new way to live, a life where she could be herself, where her power was not a curse, and where trust and friendship could exist even in the most impossible places. Their story was just beginning, and neither of them knew how far it would go. But in that quiet moment, in a simple garden under twin moons, they both understood something important. Even the smallest spark of trust and kindness could ignite a light strong enough to change worlds. The next morning, Princess Leora woke to the soft glow of sunlight on her window. She stretched and felt a quiet excitement. She knew Evan would be on the fleet today, working on repairs, and she hoped to see him. The palace felt different since their first meeting. The halls no longer seemed empty or cold. She felt a new sense of strength, knowing someone cared for her and accepted her as she was. Evan, meanwhile, had already begun his day in the maintenance bay. He checked circuits, repaired panels, and coordinated with other human engineers. His thoughts, however, kept returning to Leora. He remembered the way her energy had surged during the intruder attack, how powerful she was, and how calm she became with him by her side. He did not understand all the science behind her energy, but he understood one thing clearly. She needed someone she could trust. He wanted to be that person. Later, as Leora walked through the palace corridors, she heard a commotion. Alien guards were running past her, shouting orders, and the air smelled of smoke. She quickened her pace, her energy flickering nervously. Something was wrong. She reached the observation deck and saw a group of unknown ships hovering near the fleet. They were fast, sleek, and aggressive-looking. The Nalari fleet had not detected them until now. "Evan," she whispered, hurrying to the repair area where he often worked. She found him checking a power conduit. "What is it?" he asked, noticing the fear in her eyes. "Ships. Unknown ships. They are attacking," she said quickly. Evan grabbed her hand. "Come with me," he said. "We will get to the control room and see what is happening." They ran together through the corridors. Alarms blared, red lights flashing along the walls. Guards shouted orders, but the human and the princess moved calmly, navigating quickly through the chaos. Leora's energy began to flare, sensing the danger, but Evan held her hand firmly. "Breathe," he said. "We are together. Stay calm." They reached the control room and looked out the large windows. The unknown ships were approaching fast, firing small energy pulses that could damage the fleet's shields. The Nalari fleet scrambled to respond, but the attackers moved with precision and speed. Leora's heart raced, but she focused on her energy, feeling it respond to her fear and determination. "We have to help them," she said. "We cannot just watch the fleet get destroyed." Evan nodded. "Then let's do it together." He guided her to a console that controlled part of the fleet's energy network. Evan explained simply how to channel her energy safely through the system. Leora listened carefully, trusting him completely. Together, they began to work. Leora's energy flowed through the controls, boosting the shields and creating defensive barriers, while Evan adjusted panels and redirected power to the strongest sections. The attackers fired again, and one of the ships managed to hit a smaller Nalari vessel. Leora's energy flared instinctively, creating a shield that pushed the attackers back. Sparks flew, and the room shook. But Evan stayed beside her, keeping her focused. "You are doing great," he said calmly. "Just keep breathing. We can handle this." Time seemed to stretch as they worked together. The attackers were strong, but Leora's energy, guided by Evan, created unexpected resistance. Some of the enemy ships were damaged, their energy weapons shorting out. The Nalari fleet took advantage of the disruption, pushing forward to protect the remaining ships. After a tense hour, The attackers realized they could not defeat the fleet. They retreated, disappearing into the distance. The alarms faded, and the control room returned to normal. Leora's energy dimmed, leaving her glowing faintly but stable. She looked at Evan, her heart full of relief and gratitude. "We did it," she said softly. "We did," he replied, smiling. He noticed the way her hands shook slightly from exertion and placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. "You were amazing," he said. "I could not have done it without you." Leora shook her head. "No, I could not have done it without you," she said. "You stayed calm. You guided me. You made me believe I could control this power." Evan smiled, feeling a warmth in his chest. He had never thought of himself as a hero, but standing beside Leora, he felt a quiet pride. He realized that courage was not about strength or weapons, but about standing by someone when they needed you most. After the attack, the fleet's commanders and the Nalari Council gathered in the main hall. They praised the fleet's efforts, but were surprised by the human who had assisted the princess directly. Evan stood quietly beside Leora, neither bowing nor speaking unnecessarily. He had done his part, and he did not seek recognition. Leora, however, felt a surge of pride for him. She saw the way the council looked at him, and she knew they were beginning to realize what she already knew. He was different. Over the next few days, Evan and Leora continued to spend time together. They walked in the palace gardens, repaired systems together, and shared quiet conversations. Leora felt herself opening up in ways she never had before. She laughed more, worried less, and even let her energy show naturally without fear. Evan, in turn, learned more about her power, the history of her people, and the pressures she faced as a princess. He asked questions simply, without judgment, and offered advice when he could. One evening, while walking in the garden under the soft glow of alien lanterns, Leora spoke quietly. "Do you ever worry about me?" Evan looked at her, surprised. "Worry? Sometimes. But I trust you. I trust us." Leora felt her chest tighten. No one had ever trusted her like that before. Not the nobles, not the council, not the suitors who had ignored or rejected her. Only Evan had. "I feel safe with you," she admitted. "And I feel safe with you," he replied. "Even when things get dangerous, we protect each other." Their bond grew stronger, and Leora felt a new strength within herself. She realized that being alone had made her strong, but being with someone she trusted made her stronger. Evan had shown her that her power was not a curse, that she could control it, and that she could face danger without fear if she was not alone. But not everyone was pleased. The alien suitors, who had once ignored her, began to notice her time with the human. Some laughed, some whispered warnings, and others simply watched in disbelief. They could not understand how a human, an ordinary being from a distant planet, could earn the trust and admiration of the princess. They began to plan, quietly, ways to separate them, to prove that the human was unworthy. Leora, however, ignored their whispers. She had learned that fear and jealousy had no power over her when she had someone she trusted. She and Evan continued to meet in secret gardens, walk along hidden corridors, and speak freely without fear of judgment. Their friendship deepened into something neither of them could name yet, but both felt its importance. One afternoon, while Leora and Evan were examining a minor power fluctuation in the fleet, a new threat appeared. A small but heavily armed ship approached the fleet, moving too quickly to be detected by normal sensors. It fired warning shots at the nearest vessels, signaling intent to attack. Leora's energy flared instinctively, sensing the aggression. Evan grabbed her hand, his calm voice guiding her. "Breathe. We can handle this." Together, they directed energy through the fleet's shields, creating a barrier that absorbed the first shots. Leora's power pulsed in rhythm with Evan's steady instructions, creating a harmony of human strategy and Nalari strength. The attackers were confused, unable to predict the combined effort. After several minutes, the ship withdrew. Realizing that the fleet was defended by more than technology, it was defended by trust and unity. After the threat passed, the fleet commanders marveled at the cooperation between the human and the princess. Some began to reconsider their views on humans, realizing that courage and intelligence were not limited to alien nobles. Leora looked at Evan and smiled. She knew that the galaxy might not understand them yet, but she did. He was her partner in every sense, even if the universe had not accepted it. That evening, in the quiet of her private garden, Leora spoke softly to him. "You have changed everything for me," she said. "No," Evan replied gently. "You changed yourself. I just helped you see it." Leora looked at him, feeling a warmth that went beyond gratitude. She realized that her loneliness, her fears, and her power could no longer define her. With Evan by her side, she could face anything. And so, as the twin moons rose over the silver towers of the fleet, the princess and the humans stood together, ready to face whatever challenges the galaxy might send their way. They knew danger would come again, that not everyone would accept their bond, and that threats would test their courage. But they also knew one simple truth. Together, they were stronger than anything the universe could throw at them. Their story was far from over. It was only beginning, and the galaxy would soon see that even the most ordinary human could become extraordinary when he chose to stand beside a princess. And the lonely princess who had been shunned by all alien suitors would no longer face the universe alone.